Good morning, and here we are. Here's my review of a 2015 Scania P450 8x4 tipper. You'll see in the photos that I've got put up. So, Echo Uniform 65 Whiskey Zulu Mike. This vehicle is now coming up to, well, it's over 8.5 years old. It's done 506,768 kilometers. Sorry about the state of the dash. It was quite dry, funny enough, for a day in March, and it's been quite dusty. This vehicle has had a pretty tough life. It works on muckaway, predominantly in aggregates as well, so most of its life has been loaded, so you're looking at around 20 ton of product. So this has been driven hard, especially by the MPG and the stuff that you see on the driving data and all the scores, which tends to be the nature of how people drive in this industry, in this segment of the industry. But it really does show how Scanias last and how they, you do get what you pay for in the industry. And that's probably why you see so many Scanias about in the 8x4 market. Starting with the simple things. This steering wheel. All right, it's lost some of the original. You can see it's starting to flake a little bit, but you see wheels on trucks after 200,000 or 300,000 miles and they are falling apart. You're down to the rubber, you see a lot of metal. I mean, this truck has been used now for as long as I've been coming into this business. It's sort of a truck people hop into. So it's not looked after that well. It's not the cleanest lorry, and I will be putting a cloth over it soon. But so first of all, yeah, steering wheel. This runs straight, so when you're driving, it drives nice and straight. It's lovely, but there's very little wear and tear. Now, talking about the negative things, first of all, look, you've got the PTO switch. Has lost its little slider. It's meant to look like this, which is the tailgate, but I mean that's used every day, dozens and dozens of times a week, so that's fair enough. And these are being pushed back, but every truck's going to be subject to a clumsy lorry driver's hand, including mine. But things like this, you might have a little bit of wear and tear on the colour of the electric window buttons, but they work beautifully. They work every time. This door is sealed. I always remember when I used to drive an S-Reg 400 Scania, so a 1998, and it was in 2004, and that had millions of miles in it, did very hard work on containers, on wine tanks. And I remember driving it and thinking, all the trucks I've driven before have been 1 or 2 years old and there were leaks and squeaks out of the windows, but they were all sealed so well. It's just virtually everything. I'm trying to find something that doesn't work on this vehicle, but everything does. And I'm always a big fan, and you'll see in the photos, that Scania said a long time ago that they wanted every switch to be within reach for a driver without him leaning forward off the seat. And that is definitely the case with Scania here. Although this is now the PR and G series, so PG and R series, which has been replaced by the next gen, it's still the case. You have everything here, and then 2 buttons up there, all within reach. And it is a fantastic idea. You get into other manufacturers and buttons are spread everywhere. But Scania really have pioneered that, and it does work. The only downside I'd say is I've had to bring a small Bluetooth speaker in. I couldn't find a big one, but I'll find that tonight, because this doesn't have Bluetooth, but that's a small price to pay. Radio still works, still sounds good, speakers are good, but everything in the vehicle still works. Now this isn't as good as the new one, and the new dash is excellent on the next gen, but it's still a good storage space, so I can get my hard hat in, my high vis, my bag. This is for my dash cam. You've got a lot of space behind the seats, because this is, I presume this is still called the CP16. I used to be an account manager for Scania up in South Yorkshire, and you can have the CP14 where the cab ended effectively here, but this one obviously has the deeper cab, so you've got a lot of room to hang your jacket and other such things. For the way it drives beautifully. I mean, it's this company have a lot of 500s. I drive for another company which have 410s, and this is something I talk about a lot with my business. You get drivers who will always want more power, always say, yeah, the more power you get, the less work they do. Well, 20 years ago, 360s and 380s were doing the 8x4 job, and I've driven 370s on this work, and in my opinion they do the job just as well. And you can talk about whether they get you a little bit quicker, a little bit further, but that's something I'll cover in some other of my videos about why, rather than pushing a vehicle and working it very, very hard, why it just has no impact compared to nice and steady, driving the truck as it's intended. Maybe not quite as fast, but you make all the gains in savings. You don't make any gains in extra work and extra jobs. That's for another day. It's very efficient, still works well, as in, you know, the MPG I can achieve out of this is up there with the next gen 500s. It feels tight, feels solid. I don't have any fear that something's going to fall off. I mean, I have to do my checks every day. I do my wheel nuts every other day, but I still go around and check them. So that's 80 wheel nuts done with the bar and the socket. But that happens on every 8 before. This vehicle goes beautifully well at 56 miles an hour, gets there really comfortably. This company fabricate their own bodies. The body on this is in great condition with a nice liner, so I rarely have to dig out stuff at the back, but it still happens. All the power cables work. I've got this one down here, the 12 volt for my sat nav, and then this one here, I've got one for I have a spare phone if my sat nav fails, and this for my phone. All works very well. I must say, overall, it's a very impressive beast, considering that it is 8.5 years old almost, and, well, no, it's just over 8 years, 7.5 years old actually, I correct myself. But you're still looking, you know, 561,000 kilometers almost covered, and still works. So it's a good asset to the business. I mean, why get rid of it when you can have a spare driver in to come and look over it? Criticisms I'd have, I mean, I'm 6'5", so here, that is a little bit of a niggle. Sometimes towards the end of a day or towards the end of a week I work for them, I put my hand there, but these are small problems. I mean, if you consider, in fact, the next gen, they have a lower angle there, and that does bother me, and that is very difficult. Scania pioneered this mirror setup, the way the arms slope down into the body of the main mirror. I've had drivers say to me, oh, I don't like Scania's, the blind spot mirror at the top really hides cars at roundabouts, but in a Volvo or a Mercedes, it's down below and it'll hide it that way as well. So that's not really a valid point, but it is a terrific vehicle to drive for vision and clarity. That window needs cleaning, which I'll be doing in a moment because I'm not on site for another 20 minutes. And here's something I'd like to discuss. A lot of drivers I see, they moan about the fact that when you're in even in next gen, you've got a sleeper cab and you are asked to, the people say that it's a real process pulling the bunk out. Why don't other people have it? Why don't they do it? Well, one of the reasons is, look where my hand is now. And like I said, I'm in my driving position, I'm 6'5". If you have a look, I'm a good 1.5 foot away from the windscreen. Scania have the driver sit very deep from the front of the vehicle. Now you've got all of this as an overhang, but what that means is that you don't have glare. You don't feel like the windscreen is on your nose. I think that is a really great selling point. And the fact is, I've tramped in Scanias, and all I do is you pull the seat forward, the passenger seat has a lever down there because you have a flatter floor on the, usually people in an R&S. Push the lever, you move the seat, then you pull that bunk out the extra few inches. And I think it is a price worth paying, because the way you're sat back with a Scania, it is much nicer driving position, because you get far better visibility, because you get a lot more window, you're sat back, and Scania have always had this for a long time, the curved windscreen, which means this pillar is sat back. And I really believe it's, some vehicles feel like a box where they just chucked a seat and a steering wheel in, whereas Scania, I believe they started here with the driver and then built everything out around them, and you do feel like it is a driver's truck. So yes, very little to say that I would complain about this vehicle. I'll do a video in a moment about access, getting in and out, which is about as good as it gets with a vehicle of this size. Yeah, the engine hump is quite high, but you get used to it, and actually it can become quite a nice useful thing to have, because normally I will have my folder on there because this is pretty non-slip with all my paperwork, so I can just have it to hand when I get to site. And I mean, this one doesn't have a sunroof, but small price to pay. You get air conditioning, and I'll leave it there for now. I'll send some photos through and show the vehicle in motion and show it working, but generally overall it's a very impressive vehicle for its age, and even the condition is pretty dirty, but that's something a cloth can cure, and I will submit some other videos of other vehicles. I hope you enjoyed this. So here we are, a quick walk around of this Scania 2015 P450 8x4. Like I said in the other videos, it's really well put together. Pay cheap, pay twice. Everything's pretty solid. It's very nice to drive still. Just going to do my checks on the body. It's got to make sure that the muck I've just tipped, or should I say inert soil I've just tipped, has all come out. Pretty clean. Yeah, everything works. I've been on some pretty tough sites, and when you get all the cross locks and diff locks working with all this stuff, all works, drives well. Did on my wheel nut checks this morning, all 80 of them. But yeah, what can I say? Great truck, really enjoy driving it. And although it's a spare truck, and some might say it's not as looked after as many others, drives solid, and if you look after it, they'll look after you. Hope you enjoyed this.